ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. You know, we've been doing this a long time. We're hitting this is season 32 of the GLORIO blog. I finally took count.
Great, love it.
Despite all that, this has got to be one of the longest lists of anime for us to talk about on first impressions in a recent memory. We've got a lot of shows to cover for the spring 2020 season.
Sure. Just ask yourself how many in a month. How many of these will we still be talking about?
Yes. I don't know, but even on podcast episode 1 of the season here, it's a lot more than usual to cover. So we probably don't have a whole lot of time for super long intros. But you know, like I said, we'll talk about spring 2020. And just to introduce everybody, I'm Jel. We've got Iroh.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still here, not dead. G.
I'm happy to report that I won big in the tournament market in Animal Crossing 2 weeks in a row. So clearly,
this is 4 weeks now.
Or 4 weeks, yes, or something like that. God, whatever.
Day 30 something of quarantine.
Something
Who knows what's
like
happening?
that. Yes. Anyways, the point is that my reckless spending and betting in Animal Crossing was completely validated. And clearly I should just keep doing this because nothing can go wrong.
Yes, of course. Just keep doubling down on that. I actually, my turnip prices today were at 90 bells, so...
And that's a really good price. I think that is actually...
I'm going in hard.
I think mathematically that is actually the lowest it can possibly go for buying anyways. So
there's your Sow Jones stock market update for the week. But yeah, and we are joined again by Artemis.
Hey, still not into this super capitalist thing that you guys got going on. I'll just stay out of that. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone else is having fun on, we're recording, I guess today is Easter, so we're recording on Bunny Day in Animal Crossing, so everyone's having fun with that, but, you know, me and G have our priorities straight.
Indeed.
On it. But
Did Jesus roll a giant rock out of this cave for this?
I'm not even going to touch that one. Let's move along.
Good call.
Like I said, we got a lot of shows to talk about, big long list, so let's just dive into it. Let's start, these are kind of be vaguely the same order, I guess we talked about them before in some cases, and we'll start with some of the returning shows, and we'll kick things off with Kaguya-sama Love is War, Season 2. Gee, did you get a chance to watch this beforehand?
I have to confess, I did not get a chance to watch the first episode.
Well, I watched it, and yep, show's back.
Or more of the same, like.
Yep, and I have to say, I think I kind of forgot how good the show is when it's like at its best, and they came out firing with the first episode. You know, we've got everybody being incredibly dumb, lovable idiots, and I always forget how good the show looks. Like, it's very well directed, and there's a lot of like neat directing tricks, and animation is great. Like, it looks even better. From what I understand, I think season 1 was very successfue, so maybe they poured even more into this one going into it.
Really, I feel like it's usually the opposite trajectory.
No, they didn't just say, oh well, we can put out anything and it'll be fine. It actually looked really good. This is A1 Pictures. I mean, not many people have more money than A1 Pictures at this point. So, although they did have to cancel Sword Art Online this season. So.
Boo!
Oh no!
I'm so sad.
What will we do?
Yeah.
How will we survive?
Actually, yeah, there were a couple shows, because we had that No Guns Life, right?
Yeah,
was one that got canceled.
Right,
we're not getting our promised Hiroyuki Sawano Man with a Mission crossover opening. That
yeah, we're gonna have to wait on that one, and the my teen romantic comedy Snafu, or whatever the actual title is, also got delayed. Due to the COVID situation.
I mean, we don't need to get into this right now, but, like, realistically, how many of the shows this season do you think will actually finish out this season?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because a lot of these, I'm assuming they had the first couple episodes in the can already. But
Right, yeah.
what's going to happen later on?
Not every studio is Trigger, where they're delivering the last episode minutes before it goes live. But my understanding is that anime production is a little down to the wire.
It's
It
rarely
does.
done at the beginning of the season, right?
Right,
Yeah,
like it's not like the case of like Western production where a movie comes out and it's like actually they finished filming that thing like months or even years ago.
Yeah, not everyone is Kyoto Animation, where they have like the show ready to go for the, But yeah, I have been thinking about that, because it seems the impact is going to hit at some point.
Yes.
After they've run out of episodes, there's going to have to be some kind of.
I mean, it's
delays
going to
or
be either
something.
this season or next season, right? Like, I think we were going to see that shoe drop eventually.
I would be surprised if it was not this season,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, the Red Ranger of the current Super Sentai caught COVID and has been in the
shit.
hospital, like, just got discharged from the hospital.
So
it's like-
how, when it comes to Sentai, how much?
They film, like, 6 weeks in advance, I think.
Okay. Well, okay.
So
The
they're-
actual question I was going to ask, and I mean, look, of course, I hope the Red Ranger makes a speedy recovery. But the thing I was going to ask is like, is Sentai as like blatantly shameless as pro wrestling, where they would try to turn that into a plot line?
I don't believe so, but they do. My understanding is they do like commercial bumpers with all of them, where they were like, "Wash your hands so you don't get the Rona,"
Could
and then they
Could
caught
they-
the Rona.
I kind of hate to say this, but could they put somebody else in the suit, since you can't see their face?
They have that has happened in the past. Like,
Okay, so it is not as stringent as say VAs, where
right,
I feel
because
like they
you
were-
do have suits. Like the actors themselves are never in the suits. Those are stuntmen.
Okay.
But like there
Right.
have been instances where like scheduling meant that this person could not show up on set in person, so they were in suit for like 3 episodes only and were able to do voiceover.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah.
Well, get well soon to Red Ranger guy. on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else to say about Kaguya-sama, Joe?
No,
I
yeah,
feel like-
I don't think there's too much to say, other than because I mean, it is season 2. Obviously, if you were watching this, you watched season 1, you know what the show is about. I just want to report to everybody that they are backfiring on all cylinders.
That's good.
So I'm happy about that one.
I will need to get around to that.
Yeah. Let's move along
Yeah, speaking of
to
season 2.
Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise, which we
Okay.
talked about.
Okay.
Took a weird turn at the end of season 1, but where are we at now? Now that the season 2 has debuted.
Boy howdy.
Surprising absolutely no one.
Yeah.
The first episode of Build Divers Re-Rise Season 2 is a complete return to the kids' show status quo that we had come to expect from every other episode of that series. Or, in some ways, perhaps even worse than that.
It was like a flashback / recap of season 1.
Imagine, yes. So it was essentially a recap episode. But imagine they made a recap episode with entirely new footage. Like,
That's so Endless 8.
so narratively, it is still a recap. They are still basically retelling the events of season 1. But they still went through the effort of animating entirely new scenes to retell the events of season 1. It's
That sounds like a tremendous waste of everyone's time.
Oh yes. It's as Iro can attest. Now, perhaps some of this is induced by the quarantine. You know, we're all going through our own emotional and mental trial and tribulations. But again, as Iro can attest, after watching the first episode of Build Divers Re-Rise Season 2, I briefly lost my mind.
To immediately go bake some cookies.
Yes, I had to bake some cookies. I had to lie on the cold linoleum floor for about 10 minutes. I was driven I suddenly felt a need to start drinking.
I don't know if that was the shoji.
I
but,
briefly considered picking up smoking as a habit.
Just dip these cookies into this bourbon whiskey.
This first episode was in many ways incomprehensible to me because, like,
there's no Gundams in like that.
There were no Gundams.
There it is.
And that's not like, look, don't get me wrong, alright, I get it. We've all seen the famous meme image of the beam shooting over the viewer's head, right? Gundam is always constantly pulled between the spectrum of wow, cool robot and war is bad. The problem is...
Here's this episode about this, like, dog child hanging out and, reading about the ancient ruins and trying to summon people and
there's no Gundams.
Living his life, and here's the stock footage from Re-Rise Season 1 and not even Re-Rise Season 1. Gundam Build Divers Season 1, not Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise.
The prior series. And it's... I mean, okay, we don't need to keep litigating this. So really the thing is just, at its core, this episode basically existed to remind you that the thematic and narrative thrust of Re-Rise is this story and the plight of these animal people. It is not the Gundam fighting. It is not the Gundam MMO. It is not the Gunpla product. The core narrative framework of this entire show, again, this kids show about kids who go into an MMO to play with their plastic robot toys, is about this war for survival, about this planet of animal folks and the malevolent AI that lives in the sky above them. And I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't...
Be honest with me, guys. Did you have, like, even a sliver of hope that this was going to be good after the way it ended?
No, not even.
Last season.
Not a tiny bit. We knew this. We knew it was going to be bad again. We just...
Okay.
I think Ira and I were just kind of...
morbid curiosity that drove you to this?
Those last two episodes were really good.
Yeah, those last two episodes were really solid. Like...
No, this is more just, I think, you guys, your devotion to watching anything that has the Gundam name on it,
I
be
mean,
it good or bad.
Devotion's the wrong word.
Devotion is definitely the wrong word.
Obligation, maybe? Is that better? I don't know.
Obligation, yes. That is a little bit closer. Yes, it's...
That doesn't imply that you want to do it.
No, I don't think we do. It's just that... what else could we do but...
Well, I mean, animal people are real popular in anime these days.
Yeah, it's a hot topic in anime right now. So.
We'll get to some of that later, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, they gotta add the Gundams back in eventually, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the animal people.
I
are
just
gonna
don't
get Gundams.
know. Like, I just don't. I know we all got tricked into watching more, and we knew we got tricked into watching more, and we still watched it, and I don't know what the hell we expected, but it is.
You have no one to blame but yourselves at this point.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. All right. And you're still gonna keep watching it.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I have no sympathy whatsoever.
No,
So,
you
yes.
shouldn't.
We're trying to help you.
Look, there's always a chance that in this series they introduce a new cool robot that gets a new cool toy that I will buy later. So,
yeah, well, like I said, no one to blame but yourselves on that one.
Speaking of nobody to blame but myself,
Yes.
our next show is the Digimon Adventure reboot, and boy, I have feelings about that.
How did
the digital
that go?
champions.
You know, we got Greymon episode 1, and that weirds me out.
Damn.
But that's champion stage, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
I guess they are the champions. I don't know.
I feel like Greymon's not... Greymon's like an episode...
2.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
I mean, is this like the equivalent of like the MCU where, you know, Spider-Man's Uncle Ben is already dead? Like, it's been rehashed.
It's like a full reboot.
So many... Right, but what I mean is, even though this is a reboot, like, Digimon has been rehashed so many times that they're like, yo, we can't just have Agumon running around for, like, a whole episode. Just fucking bring in Greymon. Like, fuck it. Everybody already knows what to expect.
Okay, but hear me out, though. Episode 2 has Omnimon.
What?
Yeah, right?
Excuse me?
See?
Things did escalate quickly. It's true.
So, okay, here's my problem with Digimon Adventure, the reboot, as someone who has
Omnimon!
Has deep personal feelings about the original Digimon Adventure.
Omnimon in episode 2.
First of all, if you're gonna reboot the series, but also keep all of the character designs, all of the Digimon, who's this show for now? Is it for the people who watch the original and love all of those characters in Digimon? Or is it for the new kids who, maybe want to try and get them into Digimon? Because at this point, you're, deeply pandering to the base. But also, all of their, characterizations and designs have been, altered so that one could potentially argue they're not even the same characters. And it's they're not...
I think...
Enough of the,
if I'm
different.
Mr. Executive planning out this on a production committee, I'm trying to get both.
Right,
The
exactly.
fact that they're trying to do both.
They are absolutely trying to do
not
both.
succeeding
But,
at it.
as the person who is here probably most easily taken in by classic Digimon nostalgia pandering, I just spend the whole episode being that's not how I remember it. That's bad.
Right.
I had a completely different experience because even though I did watch Digimon and enjoyed Digimon back in the day and still have a lot of respect for the original, I don't remember at least the first half of the
that's
first.
fair.
I remember the
I
plot,
do remember
but I don't remember
most of it.
the story beats. And so
Right.
when I watched it, I was like, if I divorce this from any franchise and just see it as a random anime that I'm watching, it's actually pretty good.
Yes, I will agree with that. That if I spend the effort to divorce the two in my brain, the new one is actually quite well produced.
Well, that's
and
good
looks
to hear,
surprisingly
I suppose.
good.
And there's some solid moments of characterization that I just don't typically expect from
Something
most
like
kid
this.
shows.
Yeah, from a proxy battle children's show.
Yeah, I don't.
Sounds like
and
you need
so
to
I was
watch
I was pleasantly surprised.
Season 1 of Gundam Build Fighters.
But it was well made. It does look really good. I'm just genuinely surprised at the quality of.
Okay, so
production.
2 questions then. 1. Where the fuck do you go from Omnimon?
I don't fucking know, dude.
You can't.
When you're adapting, when you're reboot adapting the Digimon movie for your second episode, that is indisputably either the first or second high point of the entire first season.
Right, that's the biggest
Digimon.
pandering thing you can do, right?
Right.
And so it's
I get you want to start with a bang, but if you're adapting that as your second episode, where do you go?
right. That's like if they rebooted Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, but original Dragon Ball.
Episode
And in
2,
episode
Goku
2
is defeating Piccolo.
Right, or Goku's going Super Saiyan. I don't know. Iro, you could tell me. I'm sure there's some fucking deep Digimon lore about this, but is there a thing beyond Omnimon? Is there a thing they can say this is what it means to go beyond Omnimon? Is there Super Omnimon?
I don't want to talk about it.
I mean,
Okay,
maybe they'll do a kind of a backtracking. Maybe now that this has happened, they'll go on and he'll de-evolve or whatever it's called,
Right.
and then they'll be oh, how do we do that? We don't know. I guess we're going to have to work our way up to actually finding out how to consciously do it.
fine.
I think
Fine.
that is
At least
the play.
at least
yeah.
give, and I know this sounds weird coming from me, but
Give it a chance.
at least give it the benefit of the doubt that it's possible.
Oh yeah, of course.
To go
I am
somewhere
in full old
and
man
have it
yells
make
at cloud.
sense.
All right, fine. Number 2 then. I know nothing about this anime. I haven't seen a single bit of footage of it. How's their cover of Butterfly?
They are not using Butterfly.
What?
That singer passed away.
So? That's why I said cover.
I think they're trying to divorce. They're trying to slightly divorce from the original.
Okay, fine.
series,
That's fine. Don't do Butterfly. That's fine. Whatever. Butterfly was the inferior opening, anyways. Fine. Surely.
Whoa!
The opening. Surely, then I guess the new opening must be a remix of the Digimon rap, right?
Tomorrow the Champions. No, it's a new opening by the guy who did one of the Dragon Ball Super openings. Because Toei.
Fine.
Well, I mean, we don't know how long this is going to be. Maybe they're saving it for a later season or whatever. I don't know, like, we don't know how many episodes, right?
I mean, yes. Okay, now that you said this, I was going to say, now I would literally bet money that a sad and or orchestral remix of Butterfly plays.
No bet. I will not take you up on that.
Sometime during the show's run.
I refuse to bet money on this, or bet anything at all.
I will say, again, this is like me making broad, sweeping judgments based on, like, 2 episodes of a show that's longer than 2 episodes. But, where the fuck's the ensemble? Like, one of the core elements to me is the whole group, but it's been very Matt focused.
Ugh, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. How
fast-paced do you want it exactly? Like,
I don't know. Like,
you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, oh, it's happening too fast. Oh wait, where's every other character? Come on, calling you out.
Yes, no, as I ought be called out. Old man yells at cloud.
Well, at least it's better than try, right?
Low bar.
Well, very low bar.
Okay, well, all right. So we'll check back.
I will watch more of that. My interest is sufficiently piqued, even if it just means I'm complaining every time.
We'll check back in on your kid shows later. Although we have one more coming up in a bit here. All right, let's move along and get some of these video game shows out of the way here. I unfortunately did not get a chance to watch Sakura Wars. I watched like 10 episodes of anime last night, and I just ran out of time.
Jesus. Understandable.
So you guys are gonna have to fill me in on this one. It's still based on the upcoming game, right?
It's a sequel to the game.
Turns out,
it's a sequel to the game.
Yes.
Oh,
which means I'm like at least 50% lost.
We are so.
So they don't give you like any
no
explanation or
Fuck
anything.
No.
Okay.
The show doesn't give a shit about that.
Part of me can kind of respect that, but
here's the Imperial Flower combat review. Here they are. They defend Tokyo.
Dude, Sakura Wars, the anime, is a total fucking mess. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But also, it's totally alright.
Is it a mess because they're just deciding to dive in, or is it a mess because Sakura Wars is a mess? Like, I'm familiar enough with Sakura Wars to know that it is a mishmash of many things. But
right, it is both of that at its core. It is that as an anime, it is extremely hectic and unapologetic in its pacing and sensibilities. But it is also that, yes, Sakura Wars as a franchise is all over the fucking place. In this first episode alone, you got steampunk robots and 19th century, 20th century idols and magic and demons, cyber demons. Like, in fact, Sakura Wars is kind of basically just Doom. It's basically just if the Japanese made Doom. Like,
Doom Guy is everyone's favorite idol.
Only with old girls, yeah.
Yeah, just like literally the first episode, fucking cybernetic purple velociraptors come out of a portal.
Doom was a Japanese dating sim.
Yeah, basically. like cyborg raptors come out of a portal to attack Tokyo, and the robots, the heroes, the heroines got to get in their robots to save the day. And it's like, I'm the one with the sword. Well, I'm the one with the rocket hammer. I'm the one with the gun. I'm the one with the book. I
guess the mech. The mech-sized magic tome that shoots mech-sized magic bolts.
Yes, the robot. The robot. I don't mean to say giant robot. They're not that big, but fairly large.
They're piloted, not worn. They're mechs.
The big robot is holding a big robot-sized book from which it is casting spells from. That's amazing.
It sounds A, very legit, and B, I also have no compulsion to watch it, and I'm just happy listening to you guys talk about it.
It's some crazy motherfucking shit, and I don't know. Like, I think I don't
know if I call
it
it good.
Right, that is a thing.
The bottom line question for me is is it worth watching if you haven't played the new game yet?
Hard
Good
to say
question.
because we haven't.
That game's not out in the West yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're watching it having not played it. Is it like comprehensible
it's
enough?
a lot of me going, all right, yeah, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah, so the thing is, I mean, here's the thing. It is incomprehensible, but it is not complex. So the thing is, like, it throws a lot of really weird stuff at you, but most of it kind
you
of
can
just...
figure out the context
Yeah, it just,
pretty easily.
It rolls off the back pretty easily, because it's like, oh, okay, whatever, this setting is already ridiculous. Like, this isn't
also,
that much more...
It runs off a very particular type of ensemble cast writing in which a thing will happen, and then every character will have 1 to 2 lines of a reaction to this thing happening that correspond to their character archetype.
Oh, so like how they ruined, for my own personal tangent here, how they ruined Classicaloid Season 2. Shout out to the 4 people out there that understand what I'm talking about.
God, Classicaloid Season 1 was so good.
But yeah, I mean,
but that's what they did in Season 2, where something would happen, and you had to go down the line of every single character and get their reaction.
It's kind of like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly what Sakura Wars does. And that's the problem. Like, this anime supposedly takes place after the game, and these characters still have these extremely rote, one-note personalities, is like... Oh no, like, no character development happens at all in those video games, huh?
Well, only if you date them, obviously.
I'm kind of getting Sailor Moon flashbacks now. I don't...
Right, it's very like... Sailor Moon / Sentai adjacent type of writing, right?
Right. Like
no, it's it, having actually played a Sakura Wars game, it's not super deep. Not super deep or complex stuff going on here. It's more the spectacle of it, I think, which can be entertaining. I guess it's just. It sounds like I'd rather play the game first before I would even want to touch the anime.
I will say that the studio doing the adaptation, Sanzigen, is who also did Bubuki Baranki. Yes, for everyone who remembers that show.
Another GLORIO cult.
Shout out to Bubuki Baranki.
I think they're a good. They're a really good fit for Sakura Wars. Like,
right.
I'd say that as far as all CG anime goes, like, this is kind of sitting at that Beastars Dorohedoro adjacent tier. Maybe not at, the artistry is not really there, but the technical prowess is. And if you're going to get anyone to try to adapt this like absurd 90s kitchen sink anime setting, I think they were a particularly inspired choice.
Yeah, right. That seems like a good...
They also did the cutscenes in the game. So they were already like on
sitting around
the project. Yeah. It's definitely something. I'm not enjoying it. It's just also a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think the game comes out like next week.
Oh, sure. Something. Didn't get delayed by the Rona.
Not. I haven't heard any delays on it. No. So.
I feel like I'm being a huge hypocrite here, but it probably says a lot that, like, after watching this anime, if you were to put a gun to my head and say, "Gee, you got a choice to make. You got to buy one iconic 90s JRPG that's coming out this month. Final Fantasy VII Remake or Sakura Wars." At this point, I might pick Final Fantasy VII Remake, so...
That's a whole other can of worms, sir.
Yeah. Let me just go on the books and say I hate Final Fantasy VII. Alright, so let's get these... B-tier Cygames expanded universe shows out of the way here.
Speaking of RPGs starring idiots as the main protagonist.
Yeah, don't all break the doors down at once on this one. Princess Connect Redive, the redheaded stepchild of Cygames games, it had a couple good jokes.
It had two good jokes.
They leaned into the minutes. How did you describe the protagonist, Iroh?
As like playing the amnesia, like your generic amnesiac protagonist, as like a borderline feral, like idiot child.
Yes,
who doesn't understand anything.
And like he's a silent protagonist that is they almost keep him entirely silent, and like when she like brings him into town to like buy food, he like tries to eat the money. He's like a total idiot. So
I think like that's funny for 5 minutes at a time, and not for 25 minutes at a time.
It was good for like 2 jokes. The rest of the show was just dumb, generic, cute anime fantasy girls.
Sounds like it should have been a short or something.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
It might have been better served to be that.
Sounds like all that money should have gone to Rage of Bahamut Season 3.
Look,
Yeah.
Season
That
2
retcons
wasn't
the events of Season 2.
Yes, it did. It did look very good, and this was Cygames in-house studio, so they are stepping up their game apparently. So I'll give them that. There were 2 good jokes and it looked nice. Otherwise, don't bother with this one.
How about
What
this
about the
other
other
one?
side games? What about the other side games property, Gel?
So
Are you ready to duel, Gel?
Oh yeah, Duel.
So
It's time for Duel.
we'll talk about Shadowverse.
Now, let me get my
which
deck box out of my backpack.
we talked about
Playing a chess
this-
club at lunch.
how like they could have like Shadowverse actually has this is the Cygames like card game thing. It actually has a plot that they could have adapted into an anime, but they chose to. It was basically like somebody said, "Hey, let's try and make this like Yu-Gi-Oh!" And the director said, "You want it like Yu-Gi-Oh? You got it, boss." And they went a little too far, I think.
How blatant is it? Like,
He's got the thing on his arm to put the cards on. Like,
I mean,
I don't,
for me,
I didn't watch enough Yu-Gi-Oh! To
Is
even know what that's
this
called.
some
but
kind of copyright like infringement or something?
He's got the multicolored hair.
I mean, this type of
Right, I
card
was gonna
game
say-
show has like a long and storied history. There was like Duel Master, there was like Cardfight Vanguard, etc. It's just
yeah,
like,
there's been a lot of
thing,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
right?
Pretenders, so
Yeah.
This is
So,
nothing
Cardfight
new in that
Vanguard
regard.
was very popular.
yep. So this goes all in on that. The big plot point in episode 1. This is after the main guy finds a like treasure chest in his garage with a smartphone that he can play Shadowverse with, and
Okay, this is Grandpa's deck.
yes, with his like grandpa's deck in it or something.
oh man, I found
they haven't
Grandpa's.
actually
I found Grandpa's account. Wow, he sure was a whale.
Yeah, right. No, he did. Well, so far from what I saw, the cards are garbage. But of course, he has one special, blue eyes white dragon that he pulls out at the end that nobody seems to have seen before.
Oh, the rarest card.
And, he fights some like delinquent kid who's bullying everybody around, saying, "I want to fight the best Shadowverse player, and if I win, I take your phone." And
This sounds great.
So he takes the one girl character's phone. So the main guy, of course, has to go duel him at the Shadowverse
This
Stadium.
sounds amazing.
Is there plenty of kind of overreaction like shots where people pull out the
oh
camera?
yeah,
What?
There's the he gives the whole like, I've got 3 minions on board with 5 attack. I'm gonna kill you next turn. There's nothing you can do to win. And then the main guy's like, I wouldn't be so sure. It's not over. Shadowverse isn't over until the last turn. And then he pulls out his, magic dragon that nobody has, and clears the board.
Jal, your voice was disturbingly good. Like you might
I
be
maybe I have
missing
a
your
career
calling.
in children's dubbing on this, but
Man, this I feel like the Yu-Gi-Oh format takes on a much different quality when it's phones instead of physical cards. Like I'm trying to imagine all of like the famous.
well, what he does is so he actually has a full transformation sequence where he yells "Battle Shadowverse"
Oh, hell yeah.
and holds up his phone, and the thing on his arm appears. He puts the smartphone on his arm, and then it displays the cards on his arm, so
Look,
he can fling them out.
The main reason I say this is because it's going to take on a much different quality when the scene comes up where one of the characters asks the protagonist if he can see their phone to look at their rare card, and then he tosses the phone off the side of a cruise ship.
Say goodbye to Exodia.
Yep,
It's like, motherfucker, that's my phone! Like, that's...
I will.
Well, that-
I will say, if I was at school and there was like the resident schoolyard bully going around asking for either my cards or my phone, I'd just give him I would panic about giving my phone to someone. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
well, he was bullying all the other kids, and the one girl character, was the only one that was brave enough to stand up to him. But of course, she loses and loses her phone. So anyway, that was kind of hilarious and awful at the same time, and I don't want to watch more. But I had to see it with my own eyes.
Uh-huh.
it was amusing for one episode at least.
It certainly sounds like a thing.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's move along to a show we didn't talk about because I didn't realize this was actually a real show, and I'm still debating whether it is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gal and Dino, which is a show about a gal and her dino, and
Go
a lot
on.
of comparisons to Pop Team Epic on this one because it's the same director and it's weird.
Yes.
I think it's, and much like Pop Team Epic, I think you're going to get people who think this is an audiovisual masterpiece, and then you're going to get people who think it's the worst thing they've ever watched.
Is this a short? It's not, right?
It's a full length.
No, it's a full 30 minutes.
Question mark?
It's a full 30 minutes of things happening. The actual anime part is probably like
half the episode,
10 minutes of it, and the rest of it is... Well, there's an extensive live action element about... I wrote... Help me here.
Okay,
I
so
don't know how to
like
explain this.
the first half of the episode is like goofy little sketches about Gal and Dino, of this gal hanging out with her dino, her dinosaur pet / boyfriend.
She
I
And
do not think the dinosaur is a boyfriend in this
you're
situation.
right,
Yeah.
but also it's a little too self-aware to be a pet.
So roommate.
It's her friend.
Roommate,
Her
sure,
roommate.
we can go with
her
that.
dinosaur roommate.
Pet /
yes.
roomie. And that's like relatively normal stuff.
I enjoyed that part.
Sure. And then the second half of the episode is like some of the same stuff, but the gal, it's all live action. Dino is a man in a dino suit, and Gal is a middle-aged Japanese man. And in the first episode, they just replayed some of the skits. And then the old man died at the end. And the second episode is about Shota Aoi, a voice actor / idol / character from Pop Team Epic, trying to go back through time to save this old man's life.
Is this... never mind.
I'm trying to make this as plain as possible. I don't know.
Is this a comedy? Is it dark?
It's a comedy.
Like what's...
It's
it
a
is?
comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a comedy. Yeah.
I mean-
It just sounded real dark there for a second, like in a Steins Gate kind of way. Like, I don't know.
Well, yes, they're trying to make it serious for the sake of comedy, basically.
Right. I mean, the thing for me
Like,
is...
it's so ridiculous that this beautiful idol man that we saw in Pop Team Epic is trying to travel through time to save
Right,
this
he is like a
random
time-traveling
middle-aged man's life.
specter. He cannot physically interact with the world. He can merely... I don't know.
Affect it. I don't know.
Influence it, I
Yes,
guess. But,
yes.
yeah, so...
I don't even know, dude.
It has a lot of the... You can definitely see the directors touch on this because they're doing a lot of the similar tricks with that they did in Pop Team Epic. I don't think it fits this show well.
Yeah.
It worked good with Pop Team Epic because Pop Team Epic is like really quick, like
Right.
hits of weird, bizarre comedy. And I'm not even like a huge Pop Team Epic fan either. I just think the format fit this style better.
This seems like closer to like a comedy / heartwarming, like a goofy thing.
Yeah, so
Whereas
I think
Pop
this
Team
would have been
Epic,
better served
yeah.
as just like a normal slice of life anime because I enjoyed the parts where it's just the actual Gal and Dino parts where it's just like, you know, this chill, weird
Mm-hmm.
slice of life show where we're not even asked questions who this dino is or whatever. It's just her and the dinosaur hanging out.
Right.
And I would have been fine with that. I don't know if it would have still carried for a 30-minute show, but like those parts I enjoyed, and then the rest of it was just like
What's this have to do with anything?
it was like amusing just on how like audaciously stupid it was.
Yeah.
but like I feel like I've wasted my time and everyone's time.
Right, I think
watching
for
that.
me, the issue is, like, I think if it had advertised itself more honestly as just, like, hey, cute antics because of this odd couple, I think that would have maybe worked better, because as somebody who was a fan of Pop Team Epic and enjoyed Pop Team Epic because it was this unapologetic, mean-spirited shitpost of a TV show,
Yes.
I kind of wanted more of that energy in Gal and Dino, and it occasionally kind of pokes at that a little bit, right? Like, I think that, like, the last minute or so of episode 2 is very funny. It's very good. Like, I definitely, like, I had a good reaction to that, but I think that the show as a whole, at least of the 2 episodes that are out, I definitely have not been as enamored with it as I maybe would have hoped. I think that, at least for what I want out of it,
I feel like the director's trying to make more Pop Team Epic with content that is not more Pop Team Epic.
Yeah, maybe that's like an appropriate compare. Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. I might watch a little bit more of it because I do enjoy the actual main body of content to it, but. And I suppose I do want to see what happens to the live action part now.
Evil Langley.
So, yeah, I guess just however high your tolerance is for really dumb
shit posting.
Yes.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, you say that, but for me, I'm saying it's not shit posting hard enough. Like,
I might agree.
That might be fair. Yeah.
Yes.
They got to pick a lane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Let's go on to something I can get really mad about and talk about Tower of God.
I didn't realize you had strong feelings about Tower of God.
I have this made me irrationally angry
because
it wasn't that. It wasn't really that bad.
What are you talking about? Everyone says it's the greatest manga ever made.
So just again for context refresher, Tower of God is like the first like real legit Crunchyroll original based on a Korean webtoon thing. I wanted to watch it just because I wanted to see
why everyone irrationally thinks this is so great.
Yeah, well, there's that, and just kind of see like what direction Crunchyroll is going with it. It's different kind of source material than we're used to. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to see if it was like something was going to be different, and no, not really. It has an interesting look to it.
Sure.
The art style was kind of neat most of the time.
That, and I keep switching between art styles, and you know what I mean, like.
Yes.
Like one of them is kind of loose and kind of
sketchy.
Like a sketch.
Like hand drawn.
Yeah. And then especially when they zoom out, like the close ups are kind of more sketchy sort of thing, and then when they zoom out, it's like a more conventional kind of anime look to it.
Yeah. But I mean, it looked kind of cool. The animation was nice. Seems to be a very basic concept. Like climb the tower to find the girl type of thing, which I hated.
Yeah, you're the only one.
Yep.
And I just like I hate the whole. So like the premise is like there's this dumb kid that likes this girl, and she's like, I'm gonna go up this tower, and you have to stay here. But he blindly follows her into this Tower of Death thing, and like the thing that drove me crazy. Like, I really hate the whole, like, blind love thing, like, where I'm gonna just follow you through this, I'm not gonna care that there's a monster in front of me, and, like, the protagonist just has, like, this dumb blank look on his face the entire episode, and I just wanted to, like, slap him. This is all very irrational, this is my personal feelings on it, but I was like, dude, I get it, you want to go help this girl, but, like, you're not gonna help her if you're dead, you gotta pay attention to what you're doing here. But, he gets bailed out because some other lady shows up with a magic sword that only he can use,
because he has a cute face.
Yes, because he has a cute face. Stop me if you've heard this before.
Wait, what genre?
Other characters will also comment on his cute face inappropriately.
What genre is this? I guess
it's like an action show. So like
mystery drama.
Right. But is it
so he's gonna have to fight his way.
Fantasy is probably broadly correct. One of the things I don't like sorry. One of the things I don't like about Tower of God is that there's no cohesion to the aesthetic at all. Everything's like you have dudes with guns, plus dudes with bows, plus this lizard man with a spear, plus this kid with a magic bag, plus this magic sword, plus this guy's in a tracksuit.
Okay, yes. So that's girl. Right, so that's what I'm asking, because I'm not familiar with the source material at all, but I have, seen bits and pieces of it posted on, social media or
it's been going forever.
every time I've
haven't
seen it,
even seen that.
I'm like, wait, what genre is this? Like, like
it's going to be mostly a battle show, I think.
Yeah,
like
battle shonen
he
type.
he has to fight. Like every floor of the tower, he basically has to fight his way up the tower.
I mean, not even. I guess genre is not the right word. Like setting, like what
Yeah.
The setting.
Oh
makes no
yeah,
sense.
no, I don't know.
The
It's
tower,
some
like
kind of
the thing is,
weird-
like
It's
okay,
like a battle royale, but if it had aliens and people,
right. I've read
and
some
also
of the,
and also if it was like super serious.
yeah, I read some of the webtoon when I heard this was happening, and like, because it's over many years, I've seen lots of people say it's great, and so I read up to what I assume will be the end of season 1, and there's continues to be no cohesion to the aesthetic. Like the tower, the so-called tower, appears to just be like some kind of extra dimensional space where each quote-unquote floor is just another dimension.
Huh. Okay.
Right.
So,
Because when he gets to the second floor, it's almost like a whole different world.
right,
Like
it's
a big
just
open
kind of an
world.
excuse to throw in whatever fucking backdrop
Where they have to
want.
play Fortnite.
And they throw in like a test every floor or multiple tests.
Yeah,
per
except
floor,
I'm
right?
pretty sure the rest of the season is going to be all the second floor.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh well, yeah.
I mean, spoilers, but
Yeah, because the second floor is like there's 200 people or whatever, and only the 3 left standing can advance or something, or I
but
forget the
I
numbers.
just don't.
It's a battle royale, basically.
I just don't really understand what's supposed to be so great about it.
Okay, so hear me out. I watched episode 2. I don't know why, but I did,
Yes.
and it was far better than episode 1.
Really?
And the reason it was far better than episode 1 is because it's way funnier. Like, it's consciously more comedic.
Huh.
Like, a lot
Right.
of moments are
On
comedic.
purpose?
Because
He's a
the first
goofy, like,
episode was
alligator
very
man.
self-serious, right? Like, despite all the
Yeah.
bizarre things and the completely weird and coherent aesthetic, it was taking itself very seriously.
Yes.
The second episode is more of a half and half, I would say. Like, there
Yeah.
are some serious moments, but it's a lot more... Man, this shit is weird. Haha. Let's shows like it's actually the comedy beats are not badly done. So
All right.
I don't know if I'm going to watch.
That's
I'm kind of tempted to continue at least another episode now because I'm curious to see if that comedy tone, which works way better given the environment, is
Right.
going to stay around.
I mean that's an interesting spin to it, I guess. I mean, that is I mean, is it kind of like he's got to learn how to fight and stuff too? Because like again,
I think he'll
doesn't-
always probably remain this blank faced. Like imagine like I guess the main.
I
character
don't know why that bothered me
It's
so
like
much.
the main
I'm just
character
like-
from Given. You know how he goes around going, "Huh? What? What's
What's
to
a
this?
guitar?"
What's to that?" Like it's that character.
Yes, right. Except
With a sword.
This guy is trying not to get stabbed to death.
Right. I don't think that's going to change. Like I didn't get the impression that that's ever going to change. So,
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know.
but if it's gonna play hard on the comedy angle, then I might be tempted to watch more.
I don't know that it does.
Well,
I mean, if we're talking about why the show is popular, is it's just like any other shonen
Long-running
battle show
shonen
getting
battle,
popular.
yeah. Maybe.
Right.
Like,
And
why
I
do
don't
people,
I
like-
don't as a general like shonen battle shows, even if they're good, they just don't interest me that much as a
Right.
genre, so
Yeah.
or as a demographic, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see if it makes it past 3 episodes, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I will give it one more.
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
well, speaking of things
Yeah,
I'm probably not going to give.
Speaking of
another
episode.
bad battle
Well,
shows,
I can be angry for one more show here.
I'm glad people agree with me.
Yeah, let's talk about.
I'm. This is my show where I'm like irrationally frustrated.
No, there's rational reasons to be mad at the show.
Yeah,
let's talk about.
I'm irrationally frustrated at other people's reaction to it.
Yeah, let's talk about Gleipnir. I won't name names, but some people in our chat actually were kind of sticking up for this show a little bit. I think I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but the general idea was something that this was kind of fun in a trashy sort of way, and they appreciated that the main girl has some kind of agency over her sexuality, which I don't agree with at all. But that
do
was
I.
kind of the take on that. Gleipnir, of course, was the show where the guy turns into some mascot suit monster thing, and he meets some girl who's naked half the show or something.
She knows about monsters, but
Yeah, she knows his secret.
yeah.
and there's lots of lingering shots on her in her underwear that are totally unnecessary. And I just thought it was like, I didn't see any of that other stuff I was talking about. It just felt skeevy to me.
Agreed.
So
it was,
yeah.
it was, and on top of that, it takes itself 100% seriously, and for something to be trashy fun, it needs to take itself like at least 110% seriously.
Yes, like when
that makes sense.
When you're that kind of anime trash, you have to either go like 150% into it, or you need to be much more self-aware.
Right, and that's not really the case on this one. I mean, the dude is like a mascot suit. Like, how can you take yourself that seriously?
Right, I mean, that's what makes it crazy when he tears someone limb from limb.
Like, I feel like, look, if we want to talk about anime with a goofy basic premise because the protagonist has undergone a strange transformation, might I recommend last season's Dorohedoro, for example? But in all seriousness, I feel like the thing, with Gleipnir is like, I don't even think it is necessarily offensively bad. Like, I don't care for it, but I guess the way I would put it is that I don't think it is necessarily being harmful in the way that, say, a shield hero or something is, right? Like, it is not malicious and mean-spirited in that way, but even as, like, look, like, I don't think any of us are going to try to claim that we're, like, the paragons of taste when it comes to anime. I think everyone here has, like, their guilty pleasures, right? Like, the anime trash, the anime junk food that we just can't help but enjoy, right? I think for a lot of us last season, that was, like, It Invaded, a show that I don't think any of us could, like, maybe make the legitimate claim is, like,
a great show.
I mean, no, It Invaded is great, but yes, like, it's
coherent.
But yes. The thing I'm trying to work through here is right. Like, nobody could call it a holistically, like, quote unquote, objectively good show, but it was a deeply enjoyable show. And the thing with Gleipnir is, I'm not really seeing the angle here. Like, the characters aren't particularly likable. The premise, again, like, I think this idea of, like, oh no, humans are getting transformed into giant mascot animals by, like, I don't know, aliens or espers or some shit, and they got to
They don't really
out.
explain it, I don't
like,
care.
Right, they don't explain it, but, whatever. Like, that can be a neat, funny premise, right? Again, like, to mention again, last season's Dorohedoro centered almost entirely around the idea of, like, I'm trying to find the motherfucker who turned my head into a lizard. And I think that I guess for me, it's like Gleipnir doesn't have that personability to it. Like, it doesn't have that kind of, like... Sorry, go ahead, Jill.
I feel like it was very explicitly just going for the sex and violence angle.
Oh, yeah.
Right, right.
I don't think there was any, like, other, themes or messages or anything happening here. The way it's directed and framed, I mean...
No other way of interpretation.
Yeah, like, I mean the first time the guy meets the girl, he
saves her from a burning building.
Saves her from a burning building where she's conveniently has her shirt ripped open. He drags her body out with her, like, half of her clothes falling off, and starts to take her underwear off, as if he's going to, like, assault her, and then he stops himself. Like, and this is all like, the camera angles and everything are all, like, zoomed in and, like, voyeur cam, like, and creepy voyeur cam stuff.
Like
I'm like,
yeah,
this is not, like, fun trash. This is just actual trash.
Right, I think that is a thing, right? I mean, that is the difference between a show, like, at least for us, right here in this chat. Like, I mean, in this podcast, like, is that there are multiple flavors of anime trash, and I think that, like, some of the best ones are, even if they're being trashy, they're also offering something different, or they're being self-aware in a way that's very likable, or they have a very, like, distinct personality that helps them stand out. Like, they're trashy, but they're,
I mean, you're talking to the guy that loved every minute of 2 seasons of Kakagurui here.
Right,
so.
exactly. Like, I think
I
Kakagurui
kind of
is
did
another.
too, yeah.
Right, like I mean that's what I say when I'm talking about like shows
That's
like
another, like,
Invaded
boob show,
or
right, like-
or Kakagurui, right? Is like those are shows that like yes they're maybe kind of trashy and ridiculous and absurd, but also they have like a very strong identity to them, a very strong
Right.
personality that shines through.
And I guess at the end of the day, they're just fun to watch. Like, if a show is not fun to watch
Yeah, yes.
and it's trash, like, how,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, the gimmick of Gleipnir is going to be that because he's a suit, she strips down and gets inside of him, and they combine and fight that way or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm sure, yeah.
Oh, but you see it's so, like, warm and hot inside of him, she just gets all sweaty.
Well, we're not even making this up.
No, I'm not.
That's the show, yes.
Right, it's just
So, yeah. Hard pass on that one
Yeah.
for me.
Yup.
didn't watch it.
All right. Let's talk about another
Oh, hell
show.
yeah.
Another one that we didn't talk about on the preview because I didn't think it was going to be any good. And I don't know if it's... I would still say it was
It was fine.
good.
It's
but
great. What are you
I
talking
enjoyed-
about?
It's worth talking about for sure.
I enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it. Let's talk about the Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited, I think is the full title.
Yep.
For first things first, a cop who has unlimited money and can get away with whatever he wants. Very terrifying.
yes. I mean, fine.
Yes.
Beat me to the punch of what my whole point of why I'm not sold on
Go
this
for
show
it.
is. But
Hit me.
Yes, in the real world, a cop with unlimited resources that can get away with anything would be terrifying. But this is a ridiculous anime world where I don't know. This made me appreciate that I really have no desire to watch actual real mystery or detective shows, and I would prefer just something ridiculous like this, where this guy can just like buy his way out of everything, and he has all these cool gadgets and cars and everything.
He's like if James Bond was also Iron Man, like it's that
Combination of
it's that combination of high tech, ridiculous amounts of money, and a hugely inflated sense of self-worth.
Yes, and a total asshole.
So that's the thing, right? I'm not going to deny. I think this show has an undeniable sense of style. I think that it's
And
it's
a high
got really,
budget, I think.
Yeah,
Like, it looks good.
Its production, its presentation is very slick. If it were not for BNA, I think that Millionaire Detective would certainly be a contender for having the best ED of the season.
Very good ED.
Yes, very good ED. Not quite BNA tier, but very high up there. But so that's a thing, right? Like, I think I'm not saying that a good show has to have likable characters, but there is just something about the titular millionaire detective who is very clearly more than a millionaire because of the things he is spending his money on, but
His balance is unlimited.
right, like
Literally unlimited.
I don't like that guy. He's very unlikable, and there is not enough here to convince me that the rest of the show will be likable enough or will lean enough into the self-awareness of how unlikable this guy is to sell itself to me, I guess.
I think that's a valid concern. I get the impression though that the show understands that he's not a likable person, which they try to balance him out with Hero Justice guy, who I don't like either, but he's more of like, I guess the combination of the two I'm assuming are going to try to balance each other out.
Right, I mean,
as the show goes
the
on.
premise at its core is the classic buddy cop formula, right?
Right.
Like you have two contrasting, personality types, and that has worked time and time again. Not gonna deny that. I think the issue for me is like, I hope I'm wrong on this. I really do. I hope that like a few weeks from now we're like, oh, good. By episode 2 and 3, they like actually fleshed these characters out and addressed my concerns. But right now, the vibe I get is like, is this show just going to be episode after episode of like, the underdog cop just getting dragged around and being
thrown off bridges and
being thrown off bridges,
and...
being the butt of every joke, as the cool, suave, millionaire detective effortlessly solves all of these problems with his, unlimited checkbook, right?
I kind of wondered about it, but because the actual policeman, detective, whatever, like the quote unquote good guy, whatever, is not a walkover. Like, he's clearly ready to give this other guy a piece of his mind, which makes me think he's not just gonna, roll over and accept that he's gonna be the butt of every joke and is gonna be.
I
hope you're right, Artemis. I really do.
Fall off a bridge.
I mean, to your point, G, I don't think there's going to be any life lessons learned here, but I don't think like we're going to see character development or something here. But I think they're going for more of a fun type of look at how ridiculous they look at this ridiculous method that they've just used to solve this problem with money.
I totally I definitely get the appeal and the thematic intent of the series. I just think that like if it's really going to go all in on this premise, I think I almost need it to be more overtly over the top, like in a weird way because the presentation is so slick. It almost feels like it's taking itself pretty seriously.
Right.
Whereas, like, I think
if the music did not, like, go as hard as it does...
It's very action spy music, but...
Right. But
it could...
It
could take it further, for sure.
Right. Like, the music's what tips me across the line of, this is goofy. What I'm saying is, like, it's close enough to the line for the music to be the thing that pushes it over, if that makes sense. Like, it's a little... What I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you that it probably hews a little too seriously, like, in its script and acting.
I think that's maybe a good way to put it, because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Just something about the presentation felt too, like... Yeah, kind of what you said, Eero. A little, like... at least to me, the presentation felt very self-serious, even if the content itself was quite overtly over the top.
I think we're just not used to seeing a comedy/parody show like that is so self-serious it's funny, but with also a big budget. Like, how often do we see that?
Right, like my closest comparison to buddy cop comedy, like in recent years, like Double Decker, which is 150% all the time.
Yes,
and just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
but there were also enough like moments that just had me laughing out loud, and that is not common for me to do in anime. Like, I just tend to, because I watch alone and I just watch it, and
I did really
go, ha, that was amusing.
I did really like the bit where he gets the other dude in the department to come along by saying like, oh yeah, that girl you like's gonna be there, and then she's like she's like 55 or something. And they don't bring attention to the joke.
For me, it was the pop-up porn thing at the start was pretty good, just because it's very office humor,
Right. Yeah. And again, I definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I definitely agree with you guys. I think that there are definitely aspects of the show where there is definitely a great sense of humor at play. I guess for me, it's just like I think I need. Honestly, I think it's like all the individual pieces are working well together other than the millionaire detective. Like, I don't need him to be the butt of a joke, but I think with a character like that, I need to see him, like, lose his cool at least once, right? Like, I need confirmation that he is human, right? That he can be flapped, right? That he is not unflappable. Like, that there are things that can throw him off guard in a way that don't make him feel invincible.
I know what you mean, and we might get it. Like, it's.
I mean, he's got to have some kind of motivation, right? Like, I'm sure they'll get into that at some point.
Beyond just, I'm rich and want to be amused.
But I'd also be fully up for another scene where he throws someone out of a fancy, old school motor car, talks in horrendous Arabic, I guess, and then the guy says, I'm from Oil Emirates, like. It was so good.
That was good.
This show definitely moved from like never even heard of it to like one of the top ones on my radar for the season. Very, very.
Yeah,
quickly.
I think we'd all agree it's worth watching more. And we'll see if it can pull it off. But and yeah, I don't think any of us thought this was going to be anything when we were first reading about it. But I do think there are, because you have like the main quote unquote good guy, and they've kind of introduced some of the other characters at the office and stuff. I think there's some room there to kind of humanize the show a bit. I'm not going to hold my breath on the millionaire detective guy going anywhere, but we'll see. It was a fun first episode, and I think it's worth giving another episode or two.
Yeah. I mean, I will definitely give it a couple more episodes. It will at least
there's a lot to watch this season, though.
Yes, and that's the thing. At least for me, anyways, Millionaire Detective will need to do a lot more work to convince me that its premise is workable. I think that again, I'm not trying to take the show too seriously, but also just like me being who I am, combined with the looming specter of a cop with unlimited money being maybe in my top 10 list of most terrifying concepts. I need this show to prove that it can make that concept work.
But gee, what if he only uses his money for good?
Oh boy, like that's.
Stop.
I mean that's a thing, right? That is the problem, right? Like that gets to the core
it's a dangerous message
of my concerns about this show. Is that the last thing we need in 2020 is a show saying, actually, the real message is, gosh, wouldn't it be so much better if we just got rid of all these cops and their rules and their laws and just replaced them with an arbiter of justice with unlimited resources and oversight to carry out justice as he sees fit?
What's the bit he grew up dirt poor, and we're going to have a flashback episode where like he was a child and living in like a hovel with like 20 siblings and
Scrooge McDuck,
yeah.
Oh, whatever. We already have another anime this year that has done the comically poor premise so much better, so...
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. Let's move along to Arte, which I did not get to watch.
Well, speaking of shows that maybe, we were initially hopeful about, but...
So this is the one about is Renaissance era?
Yeah.
Renaissance era woman who wants to be a painter, and I guess
and dating itself by like that did it no favors whatsoever. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So
yeah, you guys weren't super high on it once it came out, right? Like, what happened on this one? What went wrong?
It's just like
everything went wrong.
I think it's so to try to sum it up. I think like I hate to use this as a pejorative, but I use it all the time in my daily lingo, anyways. But Arte feels very basic. Like it's in every aspect, from its presentation to its character writing to its like approach of the historical setting itself. It all feels very surface level. Like
this is like 3 stars across the board.
Yeah, like it's very much like kind of baby's first girl power story. Like it doesn't explore that concept very deeply. It doesn't explore.
It's just like a formulaic shoujo story with.
I don't know about shoujo, but yeah, it's definitely formulaic.
Okay.
It's just like so. I mean, the premise is you've got this girl, this aristocratic, like teenager, I guess she's a teenager, wants to be an artist, but no one will take her seriously because she's a woman, and they're literally tossing her violently, like manhandling her out of a shop because like, how dare she even cross the threshold, and like
it just
plays it so hard.
The sexy rugged mentor Leo respects her as a person.
Yes, the young hot one. But it's I think the problem is like I don't want to look. I do not want to criticize it purely from the like, oh, it's historically inaccurate. I'm going to nitpick it from there because look, I defended Vinland Saga last year, so I can't really like stand on solid ground here.
I believe she's meant to be like loosely based on an actual.
Right, she is supposed to be loosely based on the Artemisia I can never pronounce her last name. Sorry.
But,
historical accuracy is not the problem
I will
here, right?
historically accurately nitpick it because, like, I'm not looking for period perfect costuming or even detailed settings or whatever. But I'm looking for some kind of, like, if you're gonna say this took place in this date in this setting.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
yes.
like, why would you even bother doing that? Like, just have it as a generic fictional medieval setting and go for that if you're gonna.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like, what's the point?
I definitely agree with you there, Artemis. I think that when you put it like that, yes, then I think that this has definitely kind of intrinsically failed as a historical anime because it doesn't really do a good job of evoking the society, like the social fabric of the time period and how that would affect the culture and the ideologies of the people at the time. You know, not to go full Legend of the GLORIO Heroes history lecture here, but like, obviously, Renaissance Italy, still a pretty patriarchal society, all said and done. But the issue, I think, with, like, Arte is, like, female Renaissance artists were not unheard of.
Right, that's the thing.
It was not this.
They
It was not
famously so, like, you know, not a majority by any means, but, like, a number of famous
enough to be written about.
Women artists,
sure.
like,
yeah.
And the fact that people are, like, are literally picking her up, I guess, and
right, like,
her
manhandling someone who's aristocracy is like
right,
like like
it's not that the details of the show are off; it's that the entire premise of the show is
totally
a
like,
false narrative.
Like, for better or worse, like, the real obstacle to becoming a celebrated artist during the time period was, you know, you
being
guessed
a part of the aristocracy or not.
right, the other great stratification of society, economic class. And,
right.
like, you know, so most famous, you know, female Renaissance artists were either nobility or wealthy or both. And so, like, Arte, coming from, you know, landed gentry, like, she should actually be able to stride into any, like, artisan shop she feels like, and those people, like, you know, quote-unquote realistic, or believably for the time period, should be bowing and scraping and, like,
right?
being like,
even
oh,
if
yeah,
they're not
welcome.
taking her seriously because of her youth or because
right.
she's a woman or because they just don't like her, whatever, that's fine. But
in fact, I think that would be a better way to approach this story, right? Is, like, maybe the artisans do welcome her with open arms, but they patronize her, right? They don't take her seriously, and, like, that would actually feel more like in step with the setting. And, you know, in a weird ways, like, because I brought it up, it's like, you know, despite the guys throwing spears like 2 miles distance, like, I think Vinland Saga is a better historical anime because despite the ridiculous things happening on screen, it does a better job of evoking the
culture
tone
of the time,
and the spirit of the culture of the time, like the violent nihilism that drove the people to act the way they did during that time period. Yes, even if they're Naruto running and throwing javelins like 2 miles, like, the way they act, the way they believe, feels right within that setting, and that's not.
It's
the
really
case
tackling the issues of this that would come up in that setting.
Yeah,
right. Like, it's not just using it as a set piece.
Right.
Right. So I mean, it's basically just she's gonna gambare her way.
She's
to
gonna
the
she's
top.
gonna do that,
yeah.
and
Hell
she's
yeah,
gonna
she
she's
is.
gonna through sheer hard work and determination, and the older mentor is gonna give her impossible tasks which she will somehow achieve, and then he will be swayed, and then he will be swayed over by her
luck and pluck.
her instinctive talent, not taught talent, but her inner talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds about
All
right.
Well, we'll have to fight the patriarchy another day then, I guess.
I feel kind of bad for slamming it because it's not an offensive show. It's not like a.
It's just, like, fine.
Oh yeah,
fine.
definitely not. Yeah.
It's just that there was a lot of potential there that it's not.
It's wasted,
meeting, right?
and I have no, like, it gave me no reason to watch another second of it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move along to a show that was probably better than it should have been. I'm still blaming Aquagaze for me watching this show. My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. This was pretty fun. I don't know. Did you watch episode 2, Ira?
I didn't realize episode 2 was out, but
You did watch the first episode.
I did,
right?
and then I like skimmed a few chapters of the like manga version.
Okay, so the premise of the show is it's like I guess it is an isekai show, but like the main girl is like
she goes into her favorite otome game, but she ends up not as the heroine, but as the villain character.
Yes. So she's the villain in this otome game, and it starts out with her as a kid, and she still like has the mind of a teenage girl, like, but she's like the body of an 8-year-old basically, and she knows what's going to happen because she's played the game. So she's trying to reverse her fortunes because she's the villain, and she knows that she either dies or gets exiled in every single route of the game. So she's trying to reverse her fortunes by being nice to everybody. And they're kind of implying that the effect is going to be that everybody, both male and female, is going to fall in love with her instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding is this is... I don't have a source for this, but based on what I've heard, this is a pretty like normal plot device in female-aimed isekai.
Okay. Well, it's not something we see in mainstream anime a whole lot, though. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I was going to say actually is like in hindsight. Again, never played an otome game. I've played a couple of VNs and dating sims, but like, are villain characters common? Like villainous rivals for your affection?
Yeah, you gotta have a rival.
You know, and
right.
she goes, oh, ho, 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 and all that.
Yes, I know that, right? Look, everybody knows Karen in Street Fighter, but no, my point is more like, is that actually, like, because, like, I'm trying to think, like, the VNs and dating sims I've played, and, like, I don't ever recall, like, you know, in any male-oriented ones, I don't ever recall, like,
well, I was going to say, G, how many of otome games have you played?
Yeah, again, I've never played an otome game, so yeah, I can't speak. I was just like, I was just trying to figure out, like, is a villain role actually, like, is that a super common thing? Like,
I don't know, but it is in this game.
Okay,
so,
okay.
It's actually kind of just nice. Like,
oh no, she's being nice to everyone.
She's being nice to everybody, and
right,
and you know they all have their problems or
like,
whatever,
yeah.
and she's
in the context of like us normally looking at isekai shows, and it's this like shitty revenge power fantasy where they're just like beating up everyone or whatever, or like, you know,
or making them get theirs or whatever, right?
Having it just be, I'm gonna be nice to everyone is,
man, the power fantasy of just people liking you is extremely relatable.
But be part of the aristocracy.
Yeah. So I'm going to be interested. I'm assuming at some point it's going to jump to the future where she has to see the consequences of her actions.
It does.
We have not seen that in the first 2 episodes yet, but I'm assuming that's going to happen at some point. So far it's been entirely her as like an 8-year-old. And it's almost more of like a time travel thing where she's trying to change the future.
Well, that always goes well.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I think that when they do get around to going to the future, rather than her just simply saving herself, everybody's gonna be in love with her instead. I think that's where they're going. But yeah. So it's a fun show. Like Iro said, it feels very refreshing with just being the opposite of what we usually think of with the male dominated power fantasy type of isekai stuff. Also, just a lot of really nice looking shows this season.
Yeah,
this is also one of them.
Other things we'll say about this is I expect like zero depth whatsoever.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is going to be, I think it's just going to be a nice show, but probably not super deep or anything. You know, even as they get into some of the characters' mildly tragic backstories.
Yeah, but they're always comically overwrought otome game backstories or whatever.
Right.
Also, apparently she was involved in several of those backstories, so they don't exist anymore.
Right. They were tragic because she was going to be like bullying them or something like that, but now that she's not, it's supposed to change things. So, but yeah, it has a pretty good sense of humor about itself. Like they regularly dive into her head with her different emotions, debating with each other and stuff like that. Yeah. And like I said, it looks really nice like watercolor type background art. You know, the pretty background trend continues. So, So this may fill my Bofuri slot of just
Isekai.
nice isekai show of the season. So
Nice Isekai.
nice. All right, let's move on.
And
Thank you for killing that conversation,
you're
Iro.
welcome. We need to move on.
Let's move on to Sing Yesterday for me,
It's good.
which it was good.
Tokukobo using
this
their
was-
powers for good for once.
Yes, Dogakobo making a show that's not about pedophiles, which is a positive.
Look how far we've come.
I will say, I feel like this was a good example of good execution saving a show.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with
Because
that.
the actual plot. So, for context, this is it's like a romance manga that was written in like the late
Well, yeah, it ran
90s.
from like 97 to 2015.
And it has, which, side note, if the series ran for 18 years, I have no idea how they stretched this out for 18 years.
I mean, look, dude, like, we have seen with other, like, famous romance manga in the past that they have no qualms about stretching this shit as far as they can get away with it.
Well, here's the thing. I thought the first episode was a very straightforward, basic romance anime story that like actually had me rolling my eyes at certain points. You've got the guy who's in love with his friend from high school, who's like this, nice, quiet girl, and then you've got the manic pixie dream girl that shows up and shakes his boring life up, and it was that stuff was like not really like the actual plot was not really doing anything for me. And I have watched episode 2, which doesn't
Causes
really
more complications.
change that too much either. But
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much away. But the execution of it, however, I feel like it's pretty well written. Like the dialogue's pretty good, which is like one of the most important things in an anime like this. And it looks really good. Again, Dogakobo animates things very well, and when they're not animating pedophiles.
So, would you say then that, like, would you say that the adaptation is a situation of what, like, spitting gold from straw? Like, is it taking what is a fairly basic concept and, like, expanding it into something more compelling than that?
It seems
Well-
to me like the tonal strength of it seems like it was probably still in the manga.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think the manga probably has the same strengths and weaknesses.
Right, yeah,
is the
yeah.
impression I get. Like they're
Okay.
they're adapting it fine.
All right.
And I think because it's well written and well executed, and I don't know what. So in episode 2, I get the impression that they may not only be focusing on the main guy moving forward.
Yeah, I would probably
I don't
agree with that
know.
so far.
That's just my gut feeling that they might actually spend some time on like his initial love interest and like her story separately. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Sure.
Which that would be I think a little bit more of an interesting spin to it. But otherwise, I don't know. It just
The
felt
like weakness here is there's no like big hook to the story, right?
Right, so the thing I was
It's
going to
just-
ask is, like, so what you guys are telling me is that at its core, this is a very well-made romance show, but it's... That is exactly what it is, right? That's kind of...
I've seen reviews like of the manga where people were like, I hated it because there was just no plot.
So, okay, I didn't want to reveal my hand here, but the reason I have not watched this show is I haven't read it myself, but I have heard from people who've read the manga that... From both people who liked it and people who disliked it, that, like... I mean, Jell, you kind of alluded to it. This is a manga that's kind of ran for a while, and there are only so many ways you can spin that premise over the course of like
Right.
a decade
That
and a
makes
half, and that for better or worse, maybe it doesn't do. Again, I don't want to discourage anyone else from watching it. Again, I have not read the manga. This is only what I heard, but just that this is kind of what it is, right? Like,
hearing that makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, I'm watching it because I like slice of life a lot, and I'm not like the fact that it's also romance is neither here nor there for me.
Right. It's 2 episodes in. I've not really seen an end game necessarily. It seems very much more like a tonal character piece, where about these characters'
I think that's
feelings, etc.
Right. That's where the strength of the show is, because there's a lot of like introspective dialogue and just like a lot of it's the romance is the main plot, but it's a vehicle for them to look at themselves and try to grow as people.
It's like,
and that's where the strength of the show
is.
There's
no. I don't know if there's gonna be in the end. I assume the creators have some kind of end game in place,
some kind of climax for the
But
anime.
at the same time, if it's I know it's a romance also, but if it from the purely slice of life angle, I mean, do we go about life asking ourselves about the end game, or do we just go about life because that's what life is?
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with doing that, right? I'm kind of speaking from purely personal preference here. Like, there's a reason why, like, if I'm gonna watch any like romance aligned anime this season, it will be Kaguya-sama, because that's I need more of that. I need a hook, right? And for me, the romance or the slice of life cannot be the sole hook, but I mean, it does sound like it is doing a good job with those fairly like simple ingredients. So
I mean that's what I think the strength is like the dialogue and the introspection and like people in their entering adulthood, working out their entering adulthood type problems.
Well, if we want to get into adult type problems,
I'm really setting you up for this one, G.
We should talk about the next anime on this list.
Yeah, so so Wave Listen to Me does tackle some very similar themes in a very, very different manner.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, for me personally, I think Wave might actually be my highlight of this season so far.
I was thinking about this actually also might be my favorite show this season.
It's got all the right pieces in place for me and my sensibilities.
I love the main character.
She's
like
great.
She's I'm not going to call her a train wreck because she's a functional human being.
Yeah, but also like she is a train wreck in the way that like is very relatable to like anyone in the like millennial age bracket of like like she's not a full on train wreck, but like it's like a car crash in slow motion. Like you can see like
right.
It's like
so I'm like, my brakes might not be working so well, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
She's gonna crash, but she can at least steer the car away from the tree.
Yeah. Like she won't hit the tree. She might just drive into a ditch instead. I'm really liking it actually. Like I love its energy. I love its personality, its sense of humor, the way the dialogue is written. It's
kind of like a slice of life show, but it's very high energy.
Yeah,
it's hard to like because it has they kind of indulge her imagination a lot.
Yes,
and it has a lot of just ridiculous scenes, whether they're real or imagined, to kind of like keep the energy up, and a very good sense of humor. Like my favorite joke was the first episode. So like the premise, just to recap real quick, was like this lady like breaks up with her boyfriend, gets drunk, and pours her heart out to some random guy at a bar who happens to work for a radio station, and he puts her on the radio, and she becomes like mildly radio famous, and this apparently is kickstarting her career in radio or something like that.
Yeah.
But
is she just like a random office worker before that? Like...
She works at a restaurant. She's like a waitress at a restaurant.
Okay.
And she writes like this terrible blog for the
it's
the restaurant. So she's like a very like relatable, likable character for sure. But like my favorite joke was in the first episode when she's like talking to her friend about breaking up with her boyfriend, and she's like, I just need to get a good cry out, and her friend like recommends she watches the movie Ghost with the one with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
But she doesn't know that movie, so she gets like some like horror movie or something called like Ghost Ship or something.
Yeah.
And it cuts to her at the end of the movie, and she's like, "Well, I managed to cry, but man, that was a lot more gory than I was expecting."
By the way, where was Demi Moore? I didn't see her.
As she's just like eating a bowl of cereal and like kind of crying at the end.
It's really. I think the thing
that's the kind of sense of humor the show has.
The thing that really works for me with Minare, the protagonist, is like, I mean, if I really want to boil this down to a couple words, it's that Minare is big mood. I think a lot of people will relate to her. Yeah, like even if your life is not in the same place hers is, there's a lot of very relatable aspects of it. Like, she's in her mid-20s. She just got out of like her what seems to be her first big, like, really big adult breakup. She's working at a job she doesn't hate, but it's clearly not where she thought she'd be at this point.
Right.
She is, like, semi-self-aware of that her life is kind of a train wreck, but, like, is either too busy or too, like, her life is too frantic to, like, take the appropriate steps to course correct. And it's, again, despite, like, the very, like, kind of madcap sensibility, like, it's definitely a pretty wacky show, but
there's more nuance to it than it looks like to her character and everything.
Like,
yeah.
For me, the things that the parts that worked really well for me is that we hear so much of her inner voice, like, and it feels very relatable because it's a lot. It's not even like she's like having inner monologue about like smart, meaningful things. It's just bullshit, but that's how most people's inner monologue works. Like, in the second episode, she's, getting picked up from somebody at the radio station to get taken there, and, it's one of the, like, it's like one of the live engineers who works at he's like a young, kind of, like, rugged-looking dude, and, like, she's already, like, running mental calculations of, like, okay, this guy looks pretty good. Like, he's got a nice body. I bet he likes to go camping or something. But also, like, he works for radio, but he owns this car, so he's probably pretty well off. And it's just like, again, it's not even like she's like judging him, but it's just like these are just like the off the cuff observations that
these are the kinds of things that run through your head all day.
Right. Like the things that like would make you like that would be dread inducing if people could hear like out loud, just like the stream of consciousness that is just always going. And
right. And that's what they're setting up for her being successful in radio, is when she does talk, it's like, I guess,
and her like
relatable stuff
drunken
people want to hear.
millennial angst, stream of consciousness, powerful voice can draw in them radio listeners, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, and it's just, I mean, she fights a bear to kick off episode 1.
Yeah,
like
that also happened.
It's just like they make what could have been like such a boring, dry show very like fun, and it's interesting because like it doesn't look like your typical comedy anime. It still has a more like mature type of like subdued art style.
Right,
But like some of the things that are happening are very wacky. Like it doesn't look like something like Kaguya-sama, right? Like where that's a more traditional anime comedy.
Yeah. Like the original,
this kind of has
the original manga is by Hiroaki Samura of Blade of the Immortal, and
yes,
you see
I forgot.
Right, and
I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, and you see that in the ED, right, where like all the characters are drawn in his traditional style, and it's like, oh right, yeah, it's this guy, right, like the dude with the very traditional pencil drawn like art style.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting contrast, but
guy's got a lot of range apparently.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. Now, the only thing I could maybe throw against it is, the pacing is pretty hectic, which I think the show is doing intentionally. I think that fits the vibe of like this character is just like barely keeping afloat in her day-to-day like life. But the other thing is like also 2 episodes in, and we're already getting like a lot of like what is very clearly like weirdly specific like Japanese regional minutiae that like those of us who are like familiar with Japanese culture but don't live there are probably missing out on. Like we're just familiar enough to know we're missing something, but we're not familiar enough to know what exactly that is.
Well, damn,
Right,
now
and
I
I
have
have-
to watch the first episode.
I mean, it's
because they're in
basically,
they're in Hokkaido, right?
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's like
Yeah.
very
All right.
Hokkaido regional stuff.
right. So they get into like men from Fukuoka are like this, and women from Sapporo are like this, and it's like, all right, man, if you say so.
No, there are stereotypes for sure.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there are, yeah,
But yeah, and some of the radio minutia stuff like I don't care about, but it's like minimal enough that you can just ignore it and not really lose anything.
yeah.
But I do like I said in my write up, like, usually when an author wants to write about some very specific hobby or interest, they'll like make a club show or something.
Right,
And I'm
or
much-
like it's either a club show or the work feels like they're reading off of an encyclopedia page, right? Like it's so
right.
granular.
And there's like very brief moments that are like that in the show, but that, like I said, they're so like minimal so far that you
Yeah.
can just kind of ignore them and not really doesn't really drag anything down. But I'm just so much prefer, and I'm glad that they went this route rather than let's make a school club.
Oh, definitely,
with, you know,
definitely. I think
let's make the radio club.
It's so
And,
much more relatable when, again, this could be biased because we're all kind of in that age bracket, but I think it's a lot
I'm
more.
getting pretty far past that age.
All right, fine. Well, so you're
You
more
know,
like
no, I get you though.
you're
Yes,
more
I'm
like
much
the,
closer to this. I'm much closer to this than high school.
sure,
Yeah.
or I was gonna say, or are you closer to the age to the producer's age? But that dude's like
I
50
might
something,
be actually,
so-
but yeah.
but,
Anyway,
yeah, it's good. I like it a lot. I think it's definitely like if you can keep up with its kind of madcap pace, I definitely think it's one to check out this season.
yeah, when she starts talking really fast, it's a little hard to follow in subs, but I think it's more our fault because we're reading subs
Right.
than maybe the audio part. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think if I had to pick one show, it might be my favorite. But we can talk more about favorites later. All right. Let's move along to BNA.
Well, speaking
Brand
of
New
fighting
Animal.
animals,
So when we last talked, there was already 6 episodes out, right?
not yet.
Or we have there's more than one out though, right? When we started,
Or they
last
were out.
time
They
we
were
talked.
out. But yes, we were doing final impressions at the time. Yes, so we did not
Right.
discuss them.
We didn't actually get into
Yeah.
it. Is the whole thing out now, or there's
No,
that's
it's
still
just the 6 still, and
just
it's,
6
the TV
episodes.
arena has started from episode
Yes.
1, so we'll have
Okay.
those
So
6
tune in
episodes
to catch
for a while.
episode
wonder-
1 of BNA, I guess.
I wonder if they're gonna make it without delays, but
Yeah.
all right. So this is another one I did not get a chance to watch, so you guys are gonna have to fill me in. This is, of course, is the Trigger Does Animal People
Yes.
show. How was
It's good.
it?
I'm enjoying it. Nobody does
it's-
things quite like Trigger does. You know,
What is the actual like concept as far as
the main.
I mean, I know there's animal people, and that's literally all I know.
Normally, humans and beast people are separate, but the main character has suddenly turned into a beastman, and so she goes to the Beastman City to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And
is it like a more of a modern setting, or is it more like a
Modern
fantasy?
setting, yeah.
modern, yeah.
Okay.
Like modern day, it's yeah, so like Eero said, it's basically like humans and beastmen are two essentially different species of sapient, life on this planet, and there's tensions between them, which is why all the beastmen kind of live in this, sequestered city where our main character kind of travels to after her affliction. And it's a Trigger anime, right? Like it's kind of it's a Trigger anime directed by Yo Yoshinari. So it is a lot of what you're expecting. It's the
It's the kinder, gentler, more boring version of Trigger.
Damn.
yeah.
I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah, we can just
We're getting right into this already, are
Do
we?
we want to? I mean, Jell, that's it. Are you ready to just get into this? Like, I mean, we could.
Yeah, let's do
We
it.
could still talk about the good things about BNA. Like, we could
Okay, go ahead. Get
all
that
right,
out of
fine.
the way
So
first.
if we're talking purely about the first episode, I really like BNA. Hell, even 5 episodes later, I still really like BNA. It's well made. It's likable. The characters are, they're whatever. They're trigger characters. They are broad, likable archetypes. And there is a visual style to BNA that is really unlike any other TV anime currently airing. It's
right.
I've gotten into this a few times, but I've really enjoyed watching Trigger grow as a studio. Like, they've always been pigeonholed as, oh, we do the crazy animation. But between BNA and Promare, like, their already amazing shot composition has been married to, like, this sense of color coordination and graphic design that is just, it's beautiful. It really is. Like, even in a year with stuff like Dorohedoro and Eizouken, I think BNA is still a contender for, like, one of the best looking anime of the year. It's a real looker. And I think the first episode does a really good job of showcasing all of Yoshinari's strengths as a director. He's definitely the most traditional of the Trigger crew, right? Like, he is, like, yes, he does fan art of Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack. Yes, he is a fan of semi-obscure Nickelodeon cartoon My Life as a Teenage Robot. Like, he is as much one of those guys as the rest of them. But also, he's not, right? Like, if people want to get the really in-depth version of this, I highly recommend checking out our BNA First Look article on the blog. But the weird thing for me is that at its core, what BNA does to me is it kind of makes me think about Yoshinari's place in Trigger as kind of, as I'll just quote from my article, he is the paradoxical white sheep of a studio that prides itself on being the black sheep of anime. He is the normie of the crew, right? Like, when you're hanging out with degenerates like Hiroyuki Imaishi, like, you can't help but be sort of normal in comparison. And I think that is definitely kind of where I'm still enjoying BNA. I think that it has a lot of potential, and I think that divorced from the expectations of Little Witch Academia, I think that BNA has a real chance to kind of grow into its own. I just also think that for better or worse, as you said, Jel, it is kind of the kinder, gentler, and less interesting version of Trigger at their best, for better or worse. Like,
yeah,
I mean, that's not necessarily bad.
No, definitely
like,
not bad.
Right,
yeah.
and like,
I mean, is this something like
yeah.
Little Witch Academia I would watch with my niece? I mean, is this
Right.
something you could watch with
Totally, yeah. Like, it's not even.
Whereas I would not watch Kill la Kill with everybody.
I mean, I think that's like BNA, like, if advertised well, is going to be a great hit for, like, it is great family oriented anime. Like, there's a couple of raunchy jokes here and there, but, like, for the most part, BNA is very clean. It is very clean in the way Little Witch Academia was very Disney, It's
right.
It's what Yoshinari does best. It's just also for those of us who, like, love Trigger because of, like, for example, Inferno Cop or something, like, kind of like it when they get a little gritty, a little sleazy,
Right.
And I think, maybe for better or worse, this really gets exacerbated because episode 5 of BNA is directed by Hiroyuki Imaishi. And it
gives you a little glimpse of what could have been.
Oh, the BNA that could have been? Yes, because it is maybe some of the funniest 22 minutes of slapstick I have seen in years. Like, probably since the last time Trigger did something like this. Stop me if you've heard this before, it's a baseball episode in which the main character suddenly comes into contact with the shittiest, most underdog team in the city, who come from the shittiest, slummiest neighborhood, that are basically just like Mako's family, but an entire, like, neighborhood. And it's really funny. I can't just describe the jokes, but it's Imaishi doing what he does best. It's blatant tweening.
Yeah, your
it's
crappy cost cutting and
it's
dumb bullshit.
Right.
It's the dumbest bullshit you've ever seen. Like, it's him repeating the same shot 3 times in a row within seconds of each other. It's like hilarious background gags. It's like just random, like, Winnie the Pooh is in this episode, just, like, straight up, and he gets, like, I don't know, maybe we're getting political here, but Winnie the Pooh gets fucking obliterated by a baseball. Just completely destroyed.
Wait. Did you say this was family friendly? What?
Yeah. It's like Looney Tunes, right? Where, like, an anvil falls on somebody's head. Winnie the Pooh just
eats a
baseball. It's like, wow, I can't believe... Right, it's just like, wow, I can't believe Winnie the Pooh fucking died. And... it's...
Are you implying it's a China reference?
Yeah, yes, that is the, like, thing. I don't think it's actually that, but...
Now I'm going to get the GLORIO chat banned in China.
If we have not been banned already.
Oh no, what will all of our Chinese listeners do?
Yeah.
But it's really funny. It's definitely the second best episode after the debut. Because the thing Maishi can do uniquely that Yoshinari can't is that...
Have fun?
Ouch.
No,
Jesus.
look.
No,
Hey, look.
I'm just stoking the fire.
Motherfucker,
I don't really mean
like,
that.
I will fucking cut you to protect the good name of Little Witch Academia. Like,
No, I loved Little Witch Academia.
Iro and I will fight. Like, if you were to insult the good name of Little Witch Academia to the Enchanted Parade, like, Iro and I will find you in New York. Like, coronavirus be damned.
I'm just stoking the fire. I love Little Witch Academia, but yes.
But like
go on.
that sentiment of what you just said is like the unfortunate undercurrent of BNA, right?
Right. Like, Amaishi is just so funny, and yes, a lot of the jokes he's doing in that episode are the same, like, stupid jokes he always does, but he does them so well, and the comedic timing is so good. And the other thing is, that episode is low budget as hell. It's made on a shoestring budget. There's so much tweening. There's as much tweening in that episode as episode 4 of Kill the Kill. It's like that tier of presentation.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But the thing is that Imaishi can basically ignore all criticisms because he just coasts by on, like, such a level of style and unapologetic shittiness that, like, nobody, like, no criticism can touch him.
Right, and like that's the thing about BNA, right, is that we've spent the past 5 minutes talking about episode 5 and not about episodes 1 through 4 and then 6.
Right, it's like Yoshinari, again, no hate to Yoshinari. He is, like, hands down one of the greatest key animators that ever lived. Dude did, like, huge parts of Asuka's fight against the MP Angels and End of Evangelion. He is a legend. But
we talked about that in our Evangelion podcast. Shout out to that.
Yeah, he is a legend amongst key animators. But the thing with, like, Yoshinari is, like, if you give him all the time and resources in the world, yeah, he can animate, like, better than almost anyone else in this industry. But the problem is that in TV production, you usually don't have all the time and resources in the world. And so your ability to make the best of your limited resources becomes a very real skill. And that is a skill I think Imaishi has perfected over his entire career, that I think Yoshinari kind of has not. And so episode 1 looks great because it's the debut episode. It's beautiful. Like, this, you can take a screen cap from almost any episode, from any scene of the first episode of BNA, and it looks gorgeous. It is a really good looking anime. And then episodes 2 through 4 are decent. They look good, and they're nice, and they're fun, and there's, like, good moments in them. You know, there's still very much that Yoshinari's undeniable sense of style in it. But without the budget, without the outsized budget and time to, like, really really, like, let loose in the way he's famous for, it merely feels pretty good. And it's weird, right? Because I think any other studio in the world would be proud to make something like BNA. I think it is still a pretty damn good anime. I think it's just, for better or worse, maybe some of us expect more from the guy who made Little Witch Academia.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess hopefully at least it doesn't get delayed. We'll see how that pans out. But I'm assuming they weren't planning on putting out more episodes until the TV series catches up. Is that to the TV airing? I mean,
still a few weeks away.
honestly,
because they dumped.
Yeah, it's
they
hard
dumped
to
it on
say.
Netflix, and then
Well, they dumped half of it on Netflix, which is
half
kind
of it
a
on
problem,
Netflix,
right? Like, I mean, that is the other thing. Like, episode 6 is not a very like exciting, action-packed episode. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger, which it probably should if it wants us to, stay on the hook. But it also, it's a hook.
Now you have to wait another 6 weeks or something to.
Yeah, like the way I'd put it is episode 6 is a hook, but there's not a lot of bait on that hook. So again, I love Trigger. I love what they do. They have always been, my favorite anime studio. Time and time again, they have been almost the sole factor for why Iro and I even bother going to Anime Expo. Is almost exclusively
so you can see those guys.
Just to see Studio Trigger. So anyone listening, like, believe me, I'm a huge fan of them. I just really hope that Yoshinari finds a way to like really bring it all together in the second half, because again, I think it's pretty good. It's solid. It's like a 8 out of 10, right? Like 4 stars.
Just needs a little extra oomph to get it to the next level. All right. Well, we'll check back on that later, and let's move on to listeners. Another one I did not have time to watch.
Oh, you mean Eureka 7 3? 4? How many Eureka 7s are there at this point?
Too many.
So,
a lot.
So it really was basically Eureka 7, huh?
It was very... I'm not going to say the plot is the same or the characters are the same, but...
They were?
No, they weren't. But stylistically, it's so similar that even if you went into the show with all the intentions in the world of not comparing it, you just couldn't.
Yeah.
I probably should have watched this because I may be the only person who hasn't watched Eureka 7, but to maybe get a fresh perspective on it, because it looked kind of cool, but I mean, is the fact that you can't divorce it from that connection, is that kind of bring it down, or does it make it hard to stand on its own? I don't know.
It's complicated.
Yes, I think. Thank you, Artemis. I think that is the perfect word for it. Is not that the show itself is actually getting a little complicated in ways I don't care for, but yes, I think it's more our feelings about listeners are complicated because, I guess you and Iro excluded, I think a lot of us have very fond feelings for Eureka 7. I loved Eureka 7. I'm a huge fan of the original series. You're meeting a fellow Eureka 7 stan.
We don't talk about anything except the original series, but
of course, only the first Eureka 7.
Nothing else exists.
What about these movies over here? I hear they're great.
I don't know what you're talking about. And
God knows what the fuck else the rest of Eureka 7 is, but
it never happened.
It's an anime that I think it really resonated with a lot of us. Maybe right place, right time. Who can say? But there's a lot of very likable things about Eureka 7, and so going into listeners is weird because a lot of those things are still here. But also, it doesn't feel as novel or as polished. But also, a lot of it is still there. Like, I think I genuinely like the main duo so far. They are... I like their dynamic. Like, it's kind of well-worn territory, but I do think that they have an interesting relationship. It's just that, like... Okay, so the way I'd put this is that the world building was maybe never the part of Eureka 7 that, like, is the thing that it's famous for. Like, the thing that people really remember Eureka 7 for is, like, its sense of adventure, the relationships of the characters, like, their personal struggles, the really good soundtrack.
The amazing soundtrack, yeah.
Yeah, really, the amazing soundtrack, the fucking...
It's good. It's probably one of my all-time favorite, like, all-around soundtracks from anime,
it's definitely up there. Yeah. It's definitely up there. I mean, I think that some of us on the chat have said time and time again that, like, you could list any one of the Eureka 7 OPs as your favorite, and I don't think I could hold it against you.
And many of the insert tracks too. I'm not even. In fact, when I think,
oh my god,
this
is the problem, right? This is the problem. We're trying to talk about listeners, and we're just talking about Eureka 7.
Oh my god, you're right. Okay.
This is the problem, right?
If you asked me, if you watched the first episode of Listeners and had never watched Eureka 7 before, and you're never even heard of it, would you still watch Listeners? And I might.
Yeah, I think that's.
I don't like mecha. Like, that's the thing. I'm not in it for the robots.
No, that's valid. That's valid.
And because that's where a lot of, I won't necessarily say most, but like a lot of the attention has been.
Really?
It's not my. I don't know.
No,
it's complicated.
I think that's a really interesting take, Artemis, because I was actually going to come from the opposite direction of, I don't think
you want more robots.
I don't think the mechs in Listeners are very good. Like regardless of your feelings about mecha as a genre, I think that like the mechs in Eureka 7 were super interesting. Like, they were designed by Shoji Kawamori of Macross fame. They had a very distinct like. Of what?
You got G started on the mechs.
Oh, sorry, yeah. You got me started. Look, it's a mecha anime. I gotta talk about it, okay? Like, I think that, like, the original Nervash and, like, a lot of the designs in Eureka 7 are very unique. They have a very unique design language, right? Like, the whole, like, surfboarding premise is, like, really unique.
But, I mean, Kawamori is one of the greatest of all time.
Right,
though,
and that's also the
like...
other thing, right? Kawamori is, like, hands down one of the greatest mecha designers that ever lived. And... again, I wouldn't even say Eureka 7 is necessarily focused on the mechs, but I think when it does focus on the mechs, it did it well. Mm-hmm. The problem with Listeners, I feel like that's why I guess it's weird, because maybe, I don't know, I think it's really interesting that we're coming from opposite directions here, but it's...
Well, I don't think we're coming from opposite directions. I'm not saying that Listeners focuses on the mechs too much and the mechs are good. I'm just saying I don't care about the mechs at all.
Right, but...
Yeah,
and I think that's a thing, right? Like, it's... I think for me, anyways, it's like... the problem with the mechs in Listeners is, like, I just don't think they look very good. Like, they're CG, which, again, not... look, that's kind of just what mecha is in 2020.
It's not the best, though, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the best. They don't... they look weird, but not necessarily weird in a good way. Like I love me some weird mechs. They look
a little stock to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that as someone who knows nothing about the art of mechs, you know?
I guess I'd almost go more like they feel... I don't want to say amateurish, because I'm sure some people worked very hard on them, but I will try to avoid going full professional concept artist here, but they don't have a professional design language to them. They feel a little bit too ramshackle, a little too like weirdly thrown together, like weird for weirdness' sake. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I mean, even beyond just the designs themselves, I think that like, or even the mechs themselves, because I don't think the mechs are actually that much of the focus, because the thing that's actually like kind of throwing me off about Listeners is, Artemis, did you watch the second episode?
I did, yeah.
It was very weird, right? Like
it was bizarre. It was like
not necessarily in a well executed way. Like I think,
did they like take it in a different direction or something?
They went. I still don't know what happened, to be honest.
So basically, it's to kind of distill it. I don't fully understand it myself, but I think at its core, it is the trope of like it's a familiar anime trope of like, oh, the villains they run into are like the kinds who can like cast illusions and hypnotism, right? So they put the character in like a weird like illusory world,
right,
where they're like forced to contend with like their deepest fears or blah 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 or whatever, right? And like the problem is that they introduced this conflict in episode 2. Like, this feels like an episode 4 or 5 villain,
with
in terms of like the way,
but with super campy villains, like
right,
incredibly camp.
Yeah, and it's like you're almost like, oh, are they trying to like replicate like the vibe of Ray and Charles, but like with like none of the like likable personality, just the camp.
It's like,
and
you have this whole plot about like messing with our understanding of the world, except we're halfway through episode 2 and we don't have an understanding of the world yet to be messed with.
Yeah.
So it's just
what
is
a good way of
going on?
Right, like episode 2 for us needed to be the like world building episode. That needed to be the like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's explain why this world apparently doesn't have music, why we're getting attacked by weird shadow demons called the Earless, what are players, right? Where does this stuff come from? Because episode 1 introduces all of these concepts at us at the same time, right? And kind of similar to the way Eureka 7 had like, the Seven Swell and Gecko State and all that stuff. But the thing is that Eureka 7 took time to onboard you onto those kind of myriad concepts one at a time, whereas Listeners hasn't really established that groundwork. So we already have a very shaky understanding of the world, and then we are thrown villains who are explicitly trying to upend our hero's perception of that world, when we, the viewers ourselves, also don't even understand how the world works that well. And it kind of leads to a very, like, confusing episode. And I'm not saying that fiction can't be confusing, but it is confusing in a way
but it needs to be in-universe cohesive, right?
Yes.
It needs to have a sense of internal logic.
Right. And that's a problem, right? I think the next episode preview literally looks like it's about to introduce your, like, not Gecko State, right? Of, oh, they got the airship, here are the friendly, like, characters, and it's like, I think we needed that in episode 2, like, to help us get grounded, because right now, Listeners just feels too much like...
So do we just need one more episode to figure this out, or because I'm hearing a lot of negative stuff?
I don't think it's a bad show. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I did not enjoy any of it, or that it was badly made, or that it has no no qualities to make up for its confusingness, I guess. But I don't know if those good qualities are going to outweigh the negatives. Yeah.
Right.
I'm willing to find out. Like, I'll give it more than one, I'll give it a couple at least, but
yeah, same.
I don't know if when it does kind of go the world building route, if it's going to do it in time.
Right.
Yeah.
For me to care anymore, because I need to care sooner
now
to be invested, right? Like, this is this is an anime that wants you to emotionally invest in whatever's going to happen, but it needs to happen sooner than later, right?
Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Okay. I might still just watch an episode, because like I said, I feel like I'm the only person that didn't watch Eureka 7, and maybe that would be interesting.
Yeah, I feel like we need you to be the control. I think we need you to be the control for this experiment, because
because I could see if it's just if the things it does well are the same as the things that Eureka 7 does well, except not as good, then in your guys' eyes, it's always going to be like inferior.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
but it's not as good. It's just objective truth. Come on.
Right. Yes, that's kind of the
the music is not music is good, but not as good. The the characters are fine, but also not as good.
Right. Okay. I'll see if I can squeeze it in after I cut a couple other things here, because I don't know how many of these other shows I'm going to keep watching. But, all right. So let's move along to the last show on our list, APPARE-RANMAN, one of our more anticipated shows.
Our
of the
original
season.
champion, our original,
and this was the 19th century trans-American race.
Yes.
With all sorts of fun, colorful characters, and this first episode was kind of okay.
It was supposed to be the chosen one. It was supposed to bring
dry.
It was supposed to bring balance to the force. It was supposed to save us this season.
It's funny because I was thinking about when I was talking about Sing Yesterday for me being kind of a boring concept executed really well. This sounds like a very great concept, which was not executed badly, but just really
did not live up to potential.
Just kind of dry.
Weirdly,
like
by the
I feel
numbers,
like Yeah, I feel like the problem with this is they kick things off with like the first like 30 seconds cold open of like the actual race part, and you're kind of all excited and everything, and then they go back and the rest of the episode is
how we got
this
here,
really
except it's really dull,
not interesting backstory of what was going on in Japan that led up to this. And I would have rather have seen that kind of sprinkled in as they're racing, kind of explaining that, than just let's now just go full flashback for the next 22 minutes of this like really boring story I don't care about. I kind of don't really like the characters all that much either. Like,
I don't dislike them. I just don't care about them.
Yeah, like I didn't really care about them. Oh, I thought the inventor guy was kind of annoying, but
I guess for me that's because I was hoping he was going to be more like anime Doc Brown instead of like. Because he looks so ridiculous, right? His appearance is so wild that you look at that guy,
right? And he's like instead of emotionless genius robot guy,
it's kind of.
But he looks like
the kind of dude who should be like tinkering on shit and like it's exploding and he's like, hell yeah, that's science, motherfucker.
Should be that character from My Hero Academia, right? Like,
yeah, like he should be like he looks like the kind of character who should be like suicidally enthusiastic. Instead, he's just like,
the cold, emotionless genius guy.
Right. It's like that's like maybe like in my top 5 least favorite anime archetypes of all time.
Right. And then when you're paired up with the lawful good idiot straight man guy, it's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling that combo. And it looks like when you look at the characters in the race, it looks like there's some like really wild, fun characters. I'm hoping, but we don't see any of that in the first episode. Yeah. So, I still have hope that once they get into the race, it's going to be fun.
I don't know how long that'll be though, because we haven't. Yeah. We're still talking about building a vehicle to get there in the first place.
My big fear is that if they continue to do APPARE-RANMAN the way they have so far. We might not even
the race isn't going to happen until the end or something.
No, we might not even get to the race until like episode 3 or 4 at the earliest, and that's.
I'm expecting like halfway through minimum, honestly.
And so
yeah,
that's why I feel like I got to bring this up because it is the inevitable comparison. But I got to bring up Redline, which was the ridiculous Madhouse animated film from from I think 2007 or 8 that took 7 years to make and was a huge financial boondoggle for Madhouse and nearly killed them as a studio, but is one of the like coolest things ever made, like ever animated. And a big criticism of that movie actually is, boy, there sure is a lot of talking in the middle of that movie, which fair, but specifically, the thing I think APPARE-RANMAN should have stolen wholesale from Redline is just open up with the race. Like, just open up with the race. Like, just the first episode should just be the race.
Deal with this backstory shit once we're in Vegas.
Yeah, like, forget backstory, forget character development. We don't need to know who these people are. We just need to know there's a cool fucking race happening. And, like, that will invest us in the rest of it. Like...
Right, and you can sprinkle in the backstory as you go. Right. Like, you don't have to just dump it all.
I agree, and I don't care. I don't give a damn about cars, racing, any of the culture, nothing. Do not give a crap. But I would have preferred I would have much preferred to see the race because it's
it's the premise. That's
what a spectacle. I want a spectacle because you've put in these characters that look absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like
bonkers,
completely nuts, and then you give us a backstory. Why?
Yeah, like it's like the weird thing of how do I put this? So you guys have heard me before say that the baseball episode is probably the best is the best premise for a filler episode. The second best,
it's one of them. Yeah.
The second best premise for a filler episode is the Wacky Races episode, and the reason why I think both of those premises work really well for filler is that they are excuses to put large casts together in weird, unfamiliar situations, and watching those personalities play off each other. And Artemis, I think, kind of related to what you were saying. Even if we're not like really into cars or racing, what we are into is interesting madcap characterization. And a race is a really good framework
Yeah,
for that.
I'll throw out an example. The race episode in Mr. Osamatsu.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, that didn't happen until season, like, a couple episodes into season 2, I think, right? Like, I don't even think it was season 1,
Right.
And that episode doesn't work without the context of this big cast of crazy characters that you've already gotten to know to a certain degree.
And I think you have a point there, Jill, but I still think that, like, if you're going to have... But, like, I mean, that is a filler episode. We're talking about
The
a
premise
TV
of the show.
series that is going to stretch that premise out for, 12, 13 episodes. And I do think that when you're doing something like that, I don't think characterization is actually that important at the very beginning. You just need to tease us with enough spectacle.
Right.
Have certain characters, right, have their time in the spotlight during that first episode doing weird, crazy shit. And then all of a sudden, we're like, whoa, what's that guy's deal? Like,
Right.
And then you can sprinkle that in and,
It makes you want to learn more about
right.
them.
Whereas now we're like, oh, good, we learned about the characters. They're not that interesting. Now we really need to get to the race.
Now we have to watch another 11 episodes of them. Yeah. Well,
I hope it's good. I really hope that
I want to like this show, but it's getting away from me.
I think we all want to like APPARE-RANMAN because I think it has all the pieces there to be a really likable, interesting show. It's just PA works. Mm-hmm.
It's just been thoroughly outshone also by so many other anime that are airing this season.
Yeah.
That something that looked completely madcap is, by comparison, pretty dull.
Yeah.
I should have known better when it was the guy that directed Tari Tari.
Now hear me out. What if now we all
I don't know if I want to hear you out.
No, not on that. I was like, we all love a good racing episode. And the problem we're having with APPARE-RANMAN is, the characters just aren't that interesting. But now hear me out. What if instead N was holding a go-kart competition and Nikaido and Kaimon decided we gotta join this to win the prize money. And also I heard a rumor
Hold on,
G.
Is this a thing that actually happens?
God, I wish. I really wish.
Okay.
I wish I could.
Don't tease us, G. I mean, come on.
I wish I could tell you that was real. I really do, but.
And we would have believed you.
Probably would have, yeah.
I should have. I should have just kept it going.
That show would lend itself very well to a car race episode.
Make up a bit about how Abisu crashes into a wall and explodes into a million pieces, but gets put together by the next episode like nothing ever happened.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not getting my hopes up that they're necessarily going to turn things around, but the potential's still there on it. We'll just
I'll
have
give
to
it
see.
a couple episodes. But
yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I will give it at least.
If they can get to the racing.
Yes.
If they can get to the race in the first 3 episodes, I think it'll be okay.
I am so skeptical, but I will try.
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I was going to say, if we're going to go back to the director of Tari Tari, that show's entire premise was based around them building up to this concert performance thing, and that did not happen until the very, very end of the show. So,
oh boy.
Yeah. Also, it was not a very good show. All right. So I think that does it. Real quick, one-word answer going around the room. What is your favorite show, Iro?
Probably BNA.
BNA?
Safe pick, but
G, are you sticking with Wave?
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with Wave.
Okay, Artemis.
The one show you didn't put on here, Jal. I'm so mad.
What did I
Hidden
miss?
Things.
Huh?
I don't even know. I don't know what that is.
Kakushigoto.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the manga
shit.
artist who writes
did forget to
Kirby
put that
manga,
on
and
here.
he's desperately trying to hide it from his elementary school age daughter.
Oh crap! Right, we talked about that during.
I completely forgot about that.
We can talk about Kakushigoto real quick.
Yeah, what? Because I actually thought that was going to be bad.
I
didn't watch it though.
I thought
we all made an assumption of he's trying to hide his raunchy manga from his daughter, but we all kind of assumed it would be
I assumed because because it was about a guy who writes a pervy manga, the anime would be a pervy anime.
Right. And
it's
also,
not.
Also, like...
It's the opposite. It's wholesome. It's like wholesome, good-natured. Like, the humor is somewhat outlandish sometimes, but completely inoffensive.
It's the creator of Sayonara Zetsubou Sensei.
I got emotionally walloped in both episodes so far.
Huh, okay. Wow,
Like,
I feel bad that we,
yeah.
I feel...
No, we totally,
So to anyone still listening at the 2-hour, 14-minute mark, Hidden Things is really good, and you should watch it.
All right. I should probably go check that out then, because that sounds like it could be up my alley. I gotta admit, I totally wrote it off. I totally ignored it. That's on me.
I don't know why. I don't know why I watched it. I honestly can't remember.
Probably because it's.
But I went in fully expecting it to be absolutely terrible and trashy, and it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of the reason why I like it so much. But it subverted my expectations so well that I could not help but enjoy it.
What studio was making that? I forget. Let me see if I can look that up real quick. This is great, compelling radio right now.
Basically, I did enjoy the first episode of that show. I don't think the comedy beats are necessarily for me. I think it was good, just like not necessarily like personally.
They were oddly for me, and I'm normally not much of a comedy person, I guess, but it worked for me. It did.
Okay.
And
yeah, I guess as we were talking about how it's by the author of Sayonara Zetsubou Sensei,
and the artwork is very reminiscent.
It does look very good
too. Yeah.
I was immediately thinking is Shaft back, but
no, it's not. Yeah, it's not so. Yeah, I expected either pervy in the worst ways or just like deeply cynical and dark sense of humor. It's not neither of those things.
Right. Like we all
complete opposite.
I think from the description you expected like Arrow Manga Sensei or something, but
right.
It's nothing like that at all.
It's just about a dude who just happens to write like I guess pervy manga, but also he writes it pretty well because he's obviously got a decent amount of name recognition, and he's trying to hide it from his daughter.
Right. It's
because he loves her so much. Like he just doesn't want her to think badly of him.
Right. And the jokes are less, oh no, my manga is like pervy. It's more like, oh no, I'm a mangaka and I don't have a real job.
Yeah. The jokes, there's nothing, even no detail about his manga at all except the titles, which are hilarious.
That's pretty good, actually. That's
they refer to like.
I love your series, like
Balls of Fury, I think, or something like that.
I love your series, Balls of Fury.
Balls of Fury, and then what was the other one? Like
Tights in the Wind.
Tights in the Wind, yeah. Like
Christ.
And that's the only.
Wasn't there an actual anime about that? Anyway.
I don't know, but that's all you ever hear about the details of what he does for a job is the titles of his work, and that's it. So
you can fill in the
not only does it not go down the trashy route, but there's no way it could with that kind of take.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'll have to add that on the watch list as well.
Every time we're like, oh, next season doesn't look that great, and then there's like 12 shows where we're like, oh, no, yeah, huh.
Well, I mean, if you really want, I don't know, Gel, what's your highlight?
I was also going with Wave. Okay. Listen to me.
Well, then, in that case, I know we're going long, so I'll keep this short. I will say, I think I am enjoying aspects of this season, and it is unfair to compare this to Winter 2020, which I think was just like uniquely filled with a lot of like real heavy hitters, but I'm definitely liking things in this season, but I wouldn't say anything has like instantly like enraptured me in the same way.
I think the quantity of good shows seems to be much higher. Like there's just a lot of like good shows, but I don't know if any of these are going to be like anime of the year contenders by the time we hit the end.
But normally by the time I sit down and I've got, roughly 10 premieres that I want to watch out of curiosity, if nothing else, and then by the end of the premiere it's halved.
Right.
But that is not the case.
And this time almost every show probably like 70% of the shows I watched, I still want to keep
Right.
watching. So, yeah, and I have a feeling some of them will probably drop off after we hit, episode 3 or whatever.
And we've still got one that hasn't even aired yet.
Wait, what?
What's still left?
Woodpecker Detective's Office.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the first detective show surprised
Yeah,
me.
so you never know.
I'm open. I'm open to anything now at this point. Okay, so yeah, I mean, just out of sheer necessity, something's gonna have to get cut eventually here. I can't watch 10 shows in one season, so it's gonna be interesting. And like we said, hopefully they will not get delayed, but we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say honestly, we might not even have a choice in terms of what we get to watch to completion at the rate.
Yeah, it's just whatever is still standing,
Yeah.
right? Unfortunately. Cross that bridge when we get there. All right. So, if anybody's still listening, thank you for sticking this one out.
Oh, whatever. This is
is
not even
probably
the longest podcast we've ever recorded.
It might be for GLORIO chat. We have
Yes,
gone
yes.
longer on other feeds here, but yeah, this might be a record for GLORIO chat. But I don't feel like I wanted to cut any of that. Like, I feel like we really had to get all that out. So thank you for all listening. Thank you guys for sticking around. Let's just wrap things up. Check us out at theglorioblog.com. We have our written posts on pretty much all these shows and more, actually. All the other shows that we watched. So if you want our full thoughts and more specific dialogue on any of these, go check that out. Follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. And you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or you can subscribe to YouTube. And, tell your friends, tell your enemies. And that's going to do it. So, thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.